In November 1970, I thought I had a lot of the telephone stuff figured out really well. I also thought I had my phone bill under control. After all, there were 75 message units that I could spend as I wished for calls that actually went through, calls to my friends. But most of what I was dialing were non-working numbers.
The number you have reached.
The number you have dialed in Con Edison is not a working number.
You have reached a non-working line. Please dial again.
If you are calling from the outside, please dial 396-5100 for assistance.
Has been changed, but at the customer's request. The mute number is not shown in our records. This is a recording. 5167.
And telephone company test lines. Thanks to an experience at a payphone that I'd had earlier, I was fully convinced that all of them were free. Now, as to the long-distance part of my bill...
The Bell system. People using technology to help keep down costs and improve service. Keeping your phone system the best in the world.
Calling long distance, I occasionally got a subscriber answer. And so I expected a couple of long-distance calls 1 minute, but I wasn't worried about those. Well, one day my phone bill actually came. My father got it and opened it first, and he was really pleased. He'd feared that perhaps I might run up a big phone bill, but he thought that whatever excess charges on the bill were quite reasonable. When he gave me the bill, however, I was not pleased. First of all, there was a significant number of additional message units. 43. Now that's only $2.67 extra, but I knew something was wrong because I had carefully counted every call I made that completed, and I should have gone over by just 1 or 2. To my father, 43 message units extra was reasonable, but I had no idea where 41 of those had come from. Now, the long-distance part of my bill couldn't possibly be confusing because the long-distance bill, unlike the message units, was completely itemized. You got the date, the time, the telephone number called, and the charge clearly printed out on the page. So, as expected, there were 2 or 3 one-minute calls to numbers that had answered that I was trying to get a recording or a ring on. No problem there. And then there was a call to Harvey, Illinois. That didn't seem familiar, so I looked at the number I called, and there wasn't a number. This was the first time I'd seen this on a long-distance bill. There was the date, the time, then a big blank where the telephone number was supposed to be, and then the charge for the call. Not only that, but there were 6 more of these mystery no-number calls to Harvey, Illinois, over the course of time covered by the bill. Huh. Okay, well, it's just a fluke. The phone company will probably be able to take it off the bill. Let's take a look at the intrastate long-distance bill. Long-distance calls within New York State were always on a separate page, and they were generally more expensive than calls between states. That's just how it was in those days. So, on the New York State long-distance page, not a single phone number, but nonetheless there were 4 calls, each to Beacon, New York, and it was the same story. Date, time, a long blank where the phone number was supposed to be, and the charge. Now this, hang on.
Good morning, telephone company.
Yeah, I have a 599 residence number. Need to talk about the bill?
Surely, would you hold on a moment, please? The lines are busy.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Just a historical note. Around this time, the number for the phone company business office had recently been changed from 811 to one of those official numbers. For me, it was 766-9950. And in the New York area, almost all business office numbers ended in 9950. This was so universally done that if you called a 9950 number in Brooklyn, Queens, or Cedarhurst 9 in Nassau County, you'd get a special intercept announcement like this.
The correct number for the business office is 538-9950. This is a recording. The number is 538-9950. If you are not calling the telephone company business office, please consult your directory and dial again.
And of course, to get that announcement, you first had to tell an operator what number you were calling.
Good afternoon, Miss Russo. May I help you?
Yeah, hi. My number's 599-3362. I have these funny calls on my...
As it turns out, Miss Russo concurred that this was very strange, and she agreed to take all of the mystery long-distance calls off the bill. As for the additional message units, the only thing she could do was have them check out the equipment that records message units to make sure it's not malfunctioning. She said she'd get back to me. With that matter partially handled, at least for the time being, I turned my attention back to an invention I was working on, an automatic telephone dialer. Before I explain this, I'll have to back up a minute. Earlier, I had discovered how rotary dialing works. It all began when I noticed that when I was talking to a friend and he dialed a digit during our conversation, it would sound to me like this. A series of clicks. Now, when you're actually dialing from the phone, the clicks are audible, but they're very subtle, and you usually don't notice them. But when someone else does it, you can't miss it. So having observed that the rotary dial produces clicks that you can hear as long as you're not the one dialing, I of course tried clicking my switch hook to see if I could dial numbers that way. And sure enough, if I pick up the phone and quickly hit the switch hook twice, that does dial a 2. How about that? So the digit 1 is 1 click, 2 is 2 clicks, 9 is 9 clicks, 0 is 10 clicks. Interestingly, this technique of dialing numbers by clicking the switch hook always seemed to work better on my crossbar 1 line than on my parents' crossbar 5 line. On crossbar 5, when you finish dialing a number, it almost immediately does this every time. But sometimes when I would try this technique on my parents' crossbar 5 line, it wouldn't do that right away. And at that point I knew the call was not going to go through, and I was just going to get a fast busy signal. So I would try to hang up. And I couldn't. This always felt to me as if I had been somehow caught or trapped. And then finally, in fact, there was one time that I was trying this over and over on my parents' line, getting that fast busy signal maybe 1 out of 3 times. And then the next day, repair service called us out of the blue saying, "Hello, this is repair service. You reported a problem with your dial?" But we had not called repair service. This indicated that crossbar 5 had some sort of an automatic trouble detection system that ended up reporting a problem on my parents' line just because I had failed to correctly click numbers several times in a row. Interesting. And it was a good thing that all my experiments with automatic dialers were being done on my crossbar 1 line, where that never happened. Now, the idea was to make a machine that could actually dial numbers. I know this is not a strange idea in the 21st century, but back in 1970, no one had ever heard of a robo-dialer. So I invented one. And yes, I apologize for even thinking of that. The first step was to record a series of sounds on a tape, which when converted to simple DC impulses would interrupt the circuit that keeps the phone off the hook so as to dial the numbers. I went to the piano with my mother's open-reel tape recorder and recorded a series of notes, which by their rhythm, when speeded up, would dial 345-1111. Now the melody here doesn't matter. Any mid-range noise that is like a sharply hit piano note would do fine. I just gave it a melody because I thought that when the thing started running, it might be a little funnier if it had a melody. Okay, so let's go back upstairs and play the tape back on double speed. Sounds good. Now the next thing to do is to take this recording and play it into the coil of a very sensitive relay so that the relay will click along with those sounds. Haha, that's gonna work. Okay, let's take the normally closed contacts of the relay and put it in series with my phone so that those clicks will dial the number. 345-1111 goes to an operator who asks, "What number are you calling?" and she can't hold me up. So let's give it a try.
What number are you calling, please?
Perfect. Now, this is a stereo tape recorder and the piano is recorded on the left channel. There's no reason why I can't use the right channel to record some message to be delivered to the person who is called. So let's see, I'll get my favorite electronic music record here, get the tape recorder ready to record, put my finger on the pause control, and here we go. Okay, that's twice on the right channel after a pause. Now let's just record a little silence here. Okay, and now the simulated pig noise. Hey, that'll work. Very good. Now to make this totally diabolical, all I have to do is take this section of tape that has the piano for dialing and the animal noises for the benefit of the called person and splice it into a loop, a continuous loop so that it'll play over and over so as to dial over and over. So let's make a loop out of this section of tape. Okay, that's great, but dang it, I forgot something. I need another noise on the tape so as to cause the relay to hang up at the end of the call before it cycles through again and dials the number. So let's go back down to the piano and record a noise that'll make the relay hang up. That'll work. Okay, now, I think I've got everything I need. We'll bring it back upstairs, hook it up again, and see if it works. I think I'm going to enjoy this, even though the operators don't deserve the abuse. We'll see what happens.
Operator? Hello? Are you playing on the phone? Bye.
Operator, don't you have something else to do besides dial that number?
Operator? Are you through playing now? Can you hang up the telephone, please?
Right number did you dial, please? Hello? Okay. There it is. Hello? 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 Hello?
That works.
Am I a stinker?
Okay, so now you guys know what a rotary dial really does. It makes a series of pulses that communicate from the phone to the equipment in the central office. Now that you know that, there's something I've been doing since the beginning of this series, which I can stop doing, and that is I've been dubbing in this sound as a sound effect. Now, in fact, the real phone tapes in my library don't have that sound on them because they are mostly recorded either off the phone line or the telephone earpiece. And so you don't get that sound. Instead, you get a series of subtle clicks. For example, here's a tape recorded off the earpiece. I'm going to dial a 3. That is the real sound on the real phone tape of dialing a 3, as recorded off the earpiece. When a tape is recorded off the telephone line itself, the clicks are a lot louder. Now that I've dialed a 3, let me kick off a series of phone calls. Hold on. That's a 1. I'm going to show you the cornucopia of so-called party lines that exist in November 1970, starting, of course, with the one that began it all, 311. I hung up. All that makes is a quiet tick. Next is, in some ways, the coolest one of all, 660. It's a test line for repairmen and installers, and it's only a party line from 4 specific office codes in Lynbrook Valley Stream, Rockville Center. I have no idea how the kids found out you could talk through it. Anyway, since I've dialed a 7 already, I'll have to hang up and ring to get off this. I'll let you hear it. I still think that's cool. Let me switch back to the earpiece. Okay, now I can disconnect. Next, I'm going to call the 4 party lines that are currently frequented by the so-called party line mafia, i.e. Fred and his gang.
Hey, Fred. Yeah. Can I speak to you from Long Island? You can call me up all you want, baby. 239-9881. Okay, I will. I'm open for anyone calling. Anyone to do with the party line mafia and wants to know how it's run and what's going to happen in the near future.
That was from the original 780-62 party line, the first clear conference that any of us had ever experienced. It was shut down, and now it's back with a recording.
Please consult your directory or dial the operator.
But Fred and his gang have moved on to greener pastures. For example, 780-84. All of these 780 and 830 numbers are in New York City, so I dial 212 first. This one I'm calling right now is in the Euclid, Brooklyn Welfare Center. The original 780 conference, now with a recording, is in the Brownsville Welfare Center. As I dial these calls from my Crossbar 1 line, Notice all the noise that we hear while I'm dialing and right after I'm dialing. Lots of metallic sounds that Crossbar 5 just doesn't make. Like that one. See? And that's actually different every time we make a call. Also, each one of these little party lines has its own distinctive ring-in sound that you hear when other people connect. Moving right along. This one is 830, so-called. It's in the Queens Welfare Center, non-working numbers in the 8500 group. My connections to 830 today are a little noisy, so the conference itself sounds a little better than what you'll hear here. Hopefully that was unintelligible. You don't want to know. That obviously was not Charlie's grandmother. That was a character named Selena, who was, I think, the only girl using an amplifier at the time. And she was kidding around obscenely, but anyway, let's go on. I'm trying to show you nice folks these party lines, and these people keep embarrassing me. This one is called 32 for 83032. It's in a sub-exchange for the Port of New York Authority. Well, we found Fred. This next one's called 85 for 78085. It's in a very small sub-exchange with only 94 telephones in some Con Edison office. Con Edison is the electric utility, and it has a lot of these all over the city. Not surprisingly, no one's on. But through the magic of production, I can go over to my parents' line, call into this, and talk to you through it. Hold on a minute.
Oh, wow. Good to be on here again. You know, I'm going to have to call a friend and ask him to get on here. Enjoy the sounds of silence. Of course, this being the old network, it's not silent. I'll be right back. Hello again. Yeah, this conference 8.5 was never really used for conversations with groups of people because it only had 4 extensions. And what would happen is people would use this to go off and have a private conversation without having to exchange phone numbers. And it was over here that I began talking to a certain girl named Kathy privately. And if anybody else had come on, we would have known because we would have heard that noise. Well, guess who's on? I know who it is because I asked him to call in. Charlie.
Yeah.
Charlie Steinert, whose nickname was the Voice of the Walrus, is here. Even before I found out about 780, he had already had a few run-ins with Fred and his gang, and he's going to tell us how that all started.
Well, it all started when we got the amplifiers hooked onto the phone. I got an old Challenger amp, and I hooked up the speaker lines from the output of the amp into the mouthpiece of the telephone, and I put a switch in series with that. And I get a microphone, and every time I wanted to talk, I would hit that switch and say, "This is the Voice of the Walrus calling." And I would come on with, my theme song, of course. And everybody would go, "Walrus, Walrus, what's your number, what's your number?" And I would give out my number, or whoever wanted their numbers given out, would help.
Yes, and what you're describing is appropriate behavior for 311. Giving out people's numbers for them made us somewhat popular.
Yeah.
Now, coming on with a theme song did tend to jam up the line a little bit, but it didn't really bother people that much because 311 was a line where everybody was just yelling all the time, and there weren't actual conversations being interrupted.
That's right.
What each of us individually didn't realize was that when we came on to the 780 and 830 lines with Fred and his little group, that was when we should have turned off the amplifier and just talked like regular people. Instead, we still signed on with our theme songs. Charlie left it playing long enough to say "I am the Walrus," which is about a minute or two.
Obviously, no one liked that, and especially Fred.
That's right. Now, my theme song didn't go as long as that, but it was a little more cringeworthy. It was actually a tape loop that I constructed that, it's just a self-promotional tape loop like this. That just shows you that other teenagers have done the same thing. They've made a loop that promotes themselves. Mine is a little worse than that. It was this.
Evan. Evan. Evan.
I actually had to recreate that with the help of a friend, and I appreciate the help, but God, am I mortified. Anyway, Charlie and I were not the only noisemakers on the line. I mean, at least he and I were trying to be friendly, but some people with amplifiers were not. This is a recording from the original 780-62 conference. A kid is using an amplifier to play Dixie, calling himself the voice of the South, and overall just being a fudz.
I got music out here. Yeah, and it's that dopey bastard that calls himself the voice of the South, but has to use a PA system because he's not big enough to talk like a man. You know, he's pretty big over the phone.
This is a guy named Lee, who decided to stand up to the voice of the South and call him out for being a coward.
Yeah, dig it, baby. That guy's got no fucking rock. I'll meet that bastard anytime. What's the matter, boy? If you're so superior, you don't need a crutch to hold you up, man.
Unfortunately, Lee, who is standing up for everyone else, has a speech impediment. Every time he says his own name, it barely is intelligible. It sounds more like way.
Speak up! Hey, man, you got yourself one fucking deal! The voice of the South. Yeah, man, I'll be down there, because I'm down there every fucking night. Who is that? Hey. Who goes down to Lawrence Station? Huh? Who are you? Huh? Wait. What's your name? Wait. Who? Wait. Never heard of you. This is the voice of the South. I challenge Reggie to both to you and my voice at the Lawrence Station tonight at 8 o'clock. Hey, man! You know something, voice of the South? 7 o'clock! That's the way to go, man. Right on. I'm right behind you. Who are you? Herbie. Hey, fucking Herbie. What? Fucking Herbie. I know you. Yeah? And you know me. I know you? Yeah. What's your name? L.E.E. From the high school. Say it again. This is the voice of the South. Hey, you fucking scumbag. Hey, kid. Voice of the South. What do you want? You better be there at 7 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Jamie?
Yeah?
Are you there?
Yeah?
Okay.
Hi, Pete.
All right.
Pete, come over.
Okay.
It's 8 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, right on. The South will rise again.
The South will rise. I do my talking with my fist.
You see you talking with your fist, huh?
That's right.
That's funny. I do it with my mouth.
I do it with my fist.
Well, you must be something wrong with you. You must be a freak.
What's the Florence police station till 8 o'clock and say it to my face?
Is it a past your bedtime? Nobody's down there.
Stop the mouth on this phone. Let's see where you are tonight, all right? This is the voice of the South.
What's that fellow, that Sylvester P. shithead, who says he's coming down to the Lawrence train station tonight? Unfortunately, he may have to leave in a series of garbage bags when we're done.
You got a big fat mouth, boy.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay, who's this?
Busy.
Huh?
Busy.
I ran Max's bunker last year in the village under the railroad track. Oh, it's Lee! Yeah!
Oh, man, that really captures it. That is the way it was. It would switch from sanity to total insanity and back, just like that. I'll never forget it.
I was obsessed by it.
Oh, you too, huh?
Yeah, it was wild. It really took over me.
Yep.
You know, it's like how people now get, hooked on the computers.
Exactly.
I was up all night long on Party Line, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't get up for school the next day.
Yes, but for you it was mostly
311.
Not 780.
That's right. It was funny. 660. Hello?
Uh-oh. Who just got on? Oh, no. Kathy?
Remember me?
Kathy?
Hi.
We actually got very close to getting Kathy herself to participate in this production. But when I spoke to her on the phone, she seemed really, I don't know, scared, like she thought I might be mad. So, Kathy, if you're listening, no hard feelings. I think you're a genius. Anyway, we couldn't get her for this production, unfortunately. Turns out she is a person of many, many voices, and that was the voice she was using when she befriended me, and she and I would come over here to talk. She seemed to make a point of showing me that she was a big fan of mine. She even played my little tune on her recorder. She got the melody a little bit wrong, but I still appreciated the thought. And I remember her saying, "But I don't say Evan the way you do. I say it like this." And then she says it in kind of a breathy voice.
We talked so many times on the phone, and I kind of got to trust her.
Yep, me too. And you know, Neil one time had a long talk with her and got to where he trusted her. In fact, I confided a few things in her. The first thing I told her was about that conference that I found in the 83057 number group. Well, actually, Charlie,
yeah,
we have more to discuss for obvious reasons. I will be back in a few minutes while I take the listeners over to 83057.
The number you have dialed is not in service at this time. Please check your directory and dial again.
Hey, hold on a minute.
If you still have trouble, dial our operator at 460-4600. Thank you.
Yeah, this was the first usable conference of this sort that I ever found on my own. And Kathy, as it turns out, was the first person I ever told about this. She was just thrilled. She used to say something like how now I and she could be the king and queen of our own party line. Well, obviously I was a little young and inexperienced, and I was taken in. So sooner or later, Kathy eventually convinced me to give her my number.
This is Con.
Con? Yep, it was a con. And now a word from our sponsor.
If you get a ring on the telephone and the call's for you, but the family's home, you go through the house into every room to find a phone just to be alone. Get the alone phone, baby, it's just for you. The alone phone, baby, it's the thing to do. The alone phone, when the family's home.
For pennies a day, you can have your own extension phone in your own room. So don't be a closet case.
Pardon?
Get the Alone phone. It's just for you.
The Alone phone. It's a phone of your own.
By the way, the announcer there is Dan Ingram of
WABC. Mama told me. I think we did play that about a half hour ago, but I don't care. I like it. It was in my stack of records I played, and I pulled it out by mistake. It must have been some kind of Freudian slip. I know a girl used to wear a Freudian slip.
Back to the Alone phone. 1969 and 70 saw something happening in downstate New York that was an embarrassment to the rest of the Bell system. And the Alone phone campaign, because of its tendency to lead to not just an extension but eventually a separate phone line for the family teenager, was actually a contributing factor to what became known as the Great Service Crisis of 1969 and 70. Problem number one, they were running out of cable pairs, leading to long delays in getting phones installed. Amazingly, at least to me, every subscriber has his own pair of wires running from the telephones in his home to the central office. And if he has 2 lines, that's 4 wires. And many people were getting 2 phone lines. First, for teenage sons and daughters, and second, to deal with the disparity between the message rate and flat rate telephone service. The phone company really brought this on themselves because they set it up so that if you had flat rate telephone service, you were still charged message units whenever you called beyond 5 miles, and you paid from the first call since there was no allowance with flat rate. That gave each and every flat rate customer an incentive to install a second message rate line, which would give him an allowance at least so he can make a few calls without paying from the get-go. So lots of people, including my friends Dave and Neil, had this arrangement, one message rate line and one flat rate line in the same house. This was becoming so popular and using up the cable pairs so fast that the Public Service Commission stepped in and outlawed it, just in time to stop me from getting a flat rate line, which meant of course that my automatic dialer couldn't be used to prank ordinary people, because if I did, right. Now the other problem was that they were running out of the circuits that carry traffic between central offices, and that meant we got a lot of right, and from Lindbrook 3. But then we also would get these.
I'm sorry. All circuits are busy now. Will you try your call again later, please? This is a recording. 21226.
The fast busy signal, according to a repairman my friend Larry had spoken to, meant that the circuits were busy. But we knew that it didn't just mean that, because for one thing, it was what I got when I was doing a very bad impression of a rotary dial. And then my grandmother's electronic line in Atlanta gave me a fast busy signal if I dialed a vacant office code or didn't dial one first when I should, or vice versa. Almost everything did that. So what did the fast busy signal mean? Well, it depends. It means either the circuits are busy, or you dialed the wrong code, or there's an equipment problem. So it can mean just about anything, and to make matters worse, most people thought that it just meant the person they were calling was on the phone. Except during the service crisis, when Crossbar 1, due to its courteous habit of letting you know right away that there are no circuits, i.e. interrupting your dialing of a number with this, made it very clear to customers that that fast busy signal does not mean the person you're calling is busy. How could it? It interrupted your dialing. And that annoyed customers a lot. I remember reading an article in the New York Times that said so. Now another thing that was happening from my Crossbar 1 line was this.
Operator, your number, please.
599-3362.
Thank you.
This would occur on my long-distance calls every now and then, and I couldn't help but wonder if the system was just falling apart so badly that they had to bring an operator in as a pinch hitter to save the calls every now and then.
And the number you're calling from?
But no, it turned out this was a normal function for the system that Crossbar 1 and not Crossbar 5 was using for long-distance calls. A certain small percentage would require the operator to key the number. Very strange. In any case, these infrequent failures, where the operator had to come in and save the day, led to a very important epiphany one day when this happened.
May I have your number, please?
599-3362.
Whoa, did you hear that? Those tones were unmistakable. No, thank you. That shows that operators dial numbers using those same tones that I've been hearing on mostly long-distance calls from my parents' line, but some calls to New York City from my line get those tones too. To show you the contrast between operator tones and touch tones, you see the difference? I definitely preferred the aesthetic of the operator tones, and that's what I began calling them. But the correct term for these is MF. And these, touch tones, that's DTMF. Those are the industry terms. The service crisis cleared up during 1971, and there were actually some signs of this. For example, one day Dave called me and he said that he had gotten this.
This is a recording. 5169.
5169? There didn't used to be such a thing.
21245.
21245, and so on. Well, they were adding capacity, and sometimes that took the form of new switching machines with new recording IDs. Socially inept. That's the way I would describe myself at age 13. Have you ever had that experience when you fall into a group of people you don't know, and you somehow know exactly what to say and how to say it? I've had that experience in recent years, but in those days, not a chance. I was so used to using the amplifier that on these party lines, I got a lot of this.
Hey, Evans, get off the phone, man. You're too loud, brother.
And did I pipe down? Usually not. Well, there was one day where I got a similar request, except this time it was different. It was Fred himself, and what he said was that I needed to get off the phone permanently. By now, the Euclid Welfare Center conference had been shut down by the phone company, leaving the 830 conferences and the quiet 85 that we were talking on earlier. Well, Fred told me that I needed to stay off of all of those, and that if I didn't, he would give out my phone number to everybody on the line, and I'd be getting calls at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, I said, "You don't have my phone number." And Fred said, "I have your number. Hang up, I'll call you." So I hung up. Hello? Fred. 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 It was a long, non-stop tirade, followed by his hanging up. He wasn't going to listen at all. So that was the message. Stay off of their lines. Now, was I warned that this might happen? I seem to recall there was a speech that Fred gave back in Program 5, which at the time sounded to me like this.
Brothers and sisters, the time has come for each and every one of you to decide whether you are going to be the problem or whether you are going to be the solution.
Sometimes we have to self-destruct these fascist pigs. If we have to fight fire with fire, it will be done. Right, yo. That's the way it is. We're tired of just talking to you fucking people. Right on. And I'm gonna show you. Get him straight. And so will Felix the cat. Because we're not bullshitting anymore.
Yeah, right on, I get it.
Anyone accused of playing music or using this party line abusingly will be tracked down.
Oops. Well, I guess that's happened. Let's see what else he said.
This is what's going to happen to you. We will approach your house. We will seek and destroy. This is no joke. And if you don't believe it, ask Charlie Steiner.
You know, that is a good idea. Let's get right back to 8-5 and ask Charlie to tell us what happened with him and Fred back before I met him. Charlie.
Yeah.
Hang on a minute. I'm going to come in on the other line. It'll make a better recording. Be right back.
Okay, so when Fred told me to get off the lines, you and I had not even spoken yet. But I'd heard your name in Fred's speech. I'd also heard the Charlie's grandmother bit that Selena was doing. So when Fred says, if you don't
believe me, ask Charlie.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah, what was he talking about?
I was called the Walrus, and I would every so often play my theme song, which is I Am the Walrus, by the Beatles. And they kept telling me to stop, and I, being a kid, didn't listen, and I didn't stop. I just, not continually, but I played music from time to time. One day, we lived upstairs, a two-family house in Valley Stream. And one night, the bell rang. And instead of going all the way down the staircase to answer the front door, I ran to the window in front of the house and leaned out the window. And it was very dark, and I couldn't see. And there was a voice down there. A couple of people, I've seen 2 or 3 people standing at the door, and one person said, "Charlie?" I said, "Yeah." And all of a sudden, bang. And I felt something sharp in my collarbone. I was shot.
Yikes.
Started bleeding, and called the police. Told the police what had happened, who I thought it might be. And 3 days later, they arrested somebody. And it wasn't Fred. I don't know if I seen Fred there or not, but it was this other guy called Felix the Cat. They arrested him, and they charged him for shooting me. It was a small caliber. They got me the collarbone, and they took pictures and everything like that. And what happened was I had to go to court for it. Every time I went to court, Felix the Cat was there. He was older than me. I believe he might have been married at the time or just got married. And he kept apologizing to me, "Please, don't take it any further. Please drop the charges." And eventually I dropped the charges on him. There was another time also where Kathy was talking to me back and forth and wanted to meet me really bad and everything, and I wanted to meet her. And for some strange reason, we couldn't get a time going. Well, eventually she found a time to meet me. We met at the Green Acres Mall in front of Sam Goody. She says, "Oh, come by yourself." I said, "Okay, She said, "Well, what are you going to be wearing?" I had a funny feeling something wasn't right. So I gave out the wrong clothes. I said I was going to be wearing all white. White pants, white shirt, and I wasn't wearing white. I was wearing dungarees. And I just had a funny feeling. So I showed up inside the store in front of Sam Goody, standing by the counter, going back and forth, looking around, and a girl comes up to me and says, "Charlie?" I said, "Yeah, Kathy." And she goes, "Yeah." And she nods her head up and down as far as I remember. Well, all of a sudden I was surrounded by people. One of them was Fred Smith. The other guy, I believe, was Felix the Cat. And another girl named Elaine from Oceanside.
The Virgin of Oceanside.
That's right. And they went to grab me and pull me out of the store to a waiting car. So I wrestled away, and I ran through the mall. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I ran through S. Klein's, and they were chasing me, Fred Smith and Felix. And I ran up the escalator the wrong way. And believe it or not, I got away.
Wow.
That was sometime, I believe, in October. Went on party line that night, and they were there. They were talking about it. I believe a couple of weeks after that was Halloween. Halloween night, I was out with my friends, and when I came home, the front of my house was totally egged. They broke windows. The whole front was just covered with egg. Well, the next morning it took the whole day to clean the egg off. Again, I got on party line, and it was Fred Smith saying, "Hey, Charlie, the yoke is on you." I'll never forget that. And that's pretty much my experience,
Wow,
and I lived on it.
That's a story. Yeah. I had forgotten most of that. Although now that you mention it, I do remember you were getting shot with a low-caliber weapon.
Yeah. Those guys didn't fool around. They were from Lawrence. They were older, and they were rough. Fred Smith. You've never met Fred Smith, right?
Never met him.
You're lucky. He was huge, way over 6 foot tall. And Winnie. Remember Winnie?
I remember him well. Fred sometimes was friendly to me, but Winnie never was.
He was huge also. These were real tough guys out of Lawrence. And I didn't really realize what I was up against. I could have got myself seriously hurt. Those are the type of guys that you didn't want to mess with.
But of course, they were the old-style rough kids.
Yeah.
As in, they'd beat you up. They weren't the new-style rough kids.
They'd kill you.
Where they'd kill you, right, like from the 80s on.
I really don't know. You know what? I look back at it now. I think if they would have got me in the car that night, and I said that to Kathy, what would have happened? Because Kathy was with them at Sam Goody, and trying to get me into the car. So what was the plan, Kathy, when you guys got me in the car? She set me up, and she apologized to me many, many times. She explained to me why and stuff. And I let it go. But I said to her, what was the plan when you got me into the car? And she says, we really didn't have a plan. We didn't, talk about that.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah.
It would be better if they had a plan. We'll rough him up, scare him, and then throw him out. But if there was no plan, whoa.
Yeah, based on seeing those guys and the way they acted and conducted themselves on party line, my gut feeling today, I think it would have been pretty serious.
So that was it for my talking on Fred's party lines. And in retrospect, that's not necessarily such a bad thing, given that I completely lacked the social skills to fit in there anyway. Meanwhile, there was still 311 and 660, so I went back to those and kept on using the amplifier. Until one day in December 1970, when I called 311 and got this.
I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording. I'm sorry. We are unable to complete your call as dialed. Please check the number and dial again, or ask your operator for assistance. This is a recording.
The recording was loud. I'd never heard this before. And the background noise was very loud, too. This was enough to drown out any attempt to shout numbers over 311.
This is a recording.
I couldn't believe it. The original 311 is gone? I kept dialing back every few minutes just to make sure it wasn't some sort of a mistake. And this felt really different from the previous times when party lines were shut down. The alternative 311 from my parents' line, all they did was put the recording back the way it used to be, so it wasn't surprising that that got shut down. And when the first incarnation of the Brownsville line got shut down, I remember looking longingly into the windows of a central office that happened to be across the street from a friend of mine, and thinking, boy, I'd love to go in there and disconnect that tone. But this, it never occurred to me that this might actually end. And it was as if I'd somehow lost a home, like I could go to other places that I liked. But I could never go home again. And Charlie feels the same way to this day. I couldn't go home, but thanks to all the wonderful places the network provided, I could make new homes for myself and my friends. And in upcoming programs, I'll show you how I did. But first, we'll go on a phone trip. That's next. Many thanks to Bianca Pederik, Bill Spiropoulos, and Josh Alberts for providing sounds to use in this production.